You're
are you just allergic to ever proving, or substantiating anything?
Hey,
stop, this is the behavior I'm talking about.
Please, time out.
This is literally the behavior I'm talking about.
When we talk about responsibility, there's two separate things going on here, and they get conflated all the time. You have a moral responsibility, and then you have like a general responsibility yourself. And the problem is when somebody says responsible, people immediately jump to that moral responsibility. If you go out into the forest and you get like mauled by a bear, you have like a responsibility to try to like keep yourself safe and act in a responsible manner. But that doesn't mean you have any moral responsibility for the bear attacking you. It's the same thing with like a sexual assault case, somebody stealing something out of your car. You have like a responsibility to your person to keep yourself safe, but you don't have moral ownership of another agent choosing to do something bad to you.
All right, I just want to say why I brought it up quickly. Now I've lost my train of thought. Okay, sleep, right? Because the general conversation has kind of sort of deviated into all rape that isn't in a back alley is majority of women not being assertive enough, when there's actually quite a lot of instances where it didn't really have anything to do with whether the woman was assertive or not. There's a lot of still very bad beliefs that are still circulating. If you read into some of the accounts that are given from these women that have been raped when they're asleep, they didn't feel like when they try to bring it up to their partners, the partners make them feel bad for being rapey because they don't feel like it's as bad, because they feel like they're in a relationship they're owed to the partner and things like this, and the recurrence rate is quite high. But I just want to, this is an example, there's a bunch of different examples as well, where it's not all rape that isn't in a back alley is necessarily because the woman wasn't assertive enough. There's like a whole myriad of different scenarios that actually happen.
So when it comes to
I don't think many people are saying it's all of that, but okay.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's not majority either. It doesn't seem to be supported by any statistics as a majority. It is partiality, but how much? I don't fucking know.
So I think probably part of the palliative assertiveness training and stuff, all that sort of stuff for women probably includes certain things like looking out for certain behaviors, like not just saying no and how to say no, but when to say no as well, right? Like stopping your boundaries before they even get encroached upon, so that they never get crossed in the first place. So like it feels like where this whole thing breaks apart is like everyone agrees, it's just the rhetoric is wrong. Like when people say we need to teach women to say no, everyone's like, whoa, no, stop putting the responsibility on women. Stop putting the responsibility on women. So how do we change the rhetoric around all of this assertiveness training, palliative assertiveness training, skills training?
You got to change the attitude around assertiveness, because not all assertiveness is masculine. And we can't stop deferring to the fact that, society has bred or raised women, reared women to be more agreeable and be more childlike. Because now you're taking away the tools that women could be using in these situations, especially with people that they know. You should be able to be assertive with people you know, even more so with individuals you don't know, because that's just strength of your character and strength of, if you believe that this is your boundary, then you should be able to uphold that.
I mean, yes, people should be able to be more assertive with people they know.
And you can.
Yeah, that's true.
More than should. I would assert that you can be, because I see it all the time. In fact, you see it with black women, and they'll call black women masculine.
So what would be like the more palatable rhetoric around it, rather than saying teaching women to say no? What could we say to do that whole umbrella of all the things that we're talking about, all these skills that we're talking about? Like, what would be a better way to communicate that quickly?
Honestly, I think encourage women to assert their boundaries. I know that's a mouthful, but to me, I feel like that actually gives more insight to the situation than just say no, because it isn't as simple as just saying no. It's about reinforcing your no, or even at times being aggressive with your no. It's not just simply the words "no," right? As we established earlier. I don't know if there's a way to even phrase that shorter and more casual way. Yeah,
assertiveness training. Would people blow up? Do you think that women need assertiveness training or women need boundary training? Like, do you think that would receive the same amount of you're blaming women? Because I kind of
certainly wouldn't trend. It wouldn't trend. That's for sure.
No, you don't have to do all that. I feel like that's part of the problem. Like even the fact that we have to add I feel like even when when Pixie said it's a mouthful to say women should be able to assert their boundaries, or she phrased it at that. I feel like that's a negative connotation that you're adding on to that, which kind of detracts from it, which still shows that there's a mindset that still needs to be broken, and there needs to be a paradigm shift in that. Like there's a workbook that I had to get for my job called the Assertiveness Handbook by Randy Patterson, and I basically is like telling you just how to be more assertive in the workplace, but you can take a lot of that and use that in your personal life.
We're gonna cycle a little
just
bit
being
again.
more assertive will help you all the way around.
Again, because there's more people who want in. Omni, love you. That's your time.
I don't consent to this week.
I understand, but it's my house, my rules. Mad Honeybee, thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you. Can I just say really quick that these topics can oftentimes lead to a lot of like bad discourse, and so anybody who's willing to get on the freaking internet and exert their opinion on these things, whether people agree or disagree, is like a really cool thing. I just want to tell you guys that.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think some people shouldn't be.
Well, yeah, so okay, I agree, but you know what I meant.
Yeah, I got you. Okay.
Have a great night, everyone.
Yeah.
So Nick, add on to your list. And to Nick, and this is a pushback on what Wick said about disagreeing with what was just said. It's about who you are getting your advice from, and who you're getting your. I feel that is a tool. You should be getting your advice from somebody who is successful in being assertive, and is successful in navigating these situations, especially the even more dynamic situations with individuals that you know and don't know.
Yeah, but nobody gives a fuck. Nobody gives a fuck, right? They're gonna take their individuals. I hear you. I agree. Right? I agree. The problem is like people are gonna get their advice from BuzzFeed and Andrew Tate because that's just what's happening, right? So it's like, how do we be efficacious? How do we do something, right? Because we can't just say, we should all be listening to the right people at the right times, and
no. Because Andrew Tate,
be honest about our feelings. It's like,
I want to give some space. I want to give some space to Irrelevant here, real quick.
Well, I mean, Andrew, whether we like it or not, like because of the prevalence of social media, it looks like Andrew Tate has it right for being assertive because he's very like all over the place or whatever. So you're talking about aesthetics. Like I think if you generally put the average person, you show them like Stephen Kenneth Destiny Bonnell II, and then you show them Andrew Tate, they're gonna go like, oh, Andrew Tate has a better understanding of assertiveness or whatever because of his social media presence or something like that. So I don't think just going like who do you view as successful is going to be enough. And I feel like that's what people do is they base it on who they view as successful.
Different definitions of success.
You know what?
Yeah,
that's a good point, right? I think if you think about it here, actually, Destiny's the bad guy because he would be reaching people if he dressed better and drove a Bugatti, right? He's robbing everyone by wearing his fucking sweatpants.
But that's not what I meant. I feel like
that's not. I mean, I'm not. This is not your argument. I'm just memeing on Destiny.
Well,
but I also want to.
That's a good point. Real quick, Irrelevant brings up a good point.
A straw man.
Like, and this goes to a question earlier on the closed panel, right? That people are drawn to very masculine characteristics and traits.
Oh,
and traditionally, some in some cases toxic masculine. They look at people, they see a muscle-bound guy with a chiseled jaw and 20 Porsches, and they think, that's a man, right? That's a man I want to emulate. That's a successful man, right? This is something that across our culture in the West, at least, right? That's part of the success. It's the aesthetics of it. It matters. And so we look at people who have great advice but do not meet the aesthetics, and they just don't get listened to as much.
So I unironically do think that's kind of a good point. That like I think some of us guys, right, who want to be a voice for nuance and a voice for like the positive or whatever, I think if we want to be efficacious and we want to reach these guys that are being grabbed up by Andrew Tate, I think we need to cater to that aesthetic a little bit.
We do.
Like if we just adopt it, like that's kind of what I'm trying to do with the whole, the fitness thing is like whatever.
I'm with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you. It's about
Andrew Tate was more than just his ripped muscles and and his money. His aesthetic was he was a businessman.
Beautiful women, billionaire.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I know, not even just beautiful.
So that being said, okay, everybody donate to Wick. Irrelevant. You need to give us money so that we can do trend and get jacked out of our fucking minds, and then we can be the male role models that Twitch needs. Okay, it's on you guys.
Hey,
listen, the only reason that Andrew Tate appeals to people is because nobody speaks to the guys that Andrew Tate speaks to. It's that simple. It's that simple.
Have you started going to the gym yet?
Karatos,
no, I quit. I quit because I realized. I'll tell you this much.
Stop, both of you. Okay. I'm curious because I want to know who is Andrew Tate speaking to, in your opinion, Karantos? Who is Andrew Tate speaking to that we are not? And why is he getting through and we're not?
I thought this was something different.
Andrew Tate is speaking to the disenfranchised men, to the men that have been ignored by society, to the men that have been fucking led astray, to the men that have no father figures, to the men that have no guidance, to the men that have no role models, to the men that have been labeled as incels just because they might be socially awkward, to the men that don't pull no women because maybe they don't have game, they're not Rizzlers, they don't have the restraining order that I have. You know what I'm saying? But check this out, right?
Would you say that he's appealing to fatherless men?
Absolutely. That's why he doesn't appeal to me, because I have a father. I don't need to look up to a bald man on the internet. I already have a father. But check this out, right? I still understand his appeal.
Representative for these young men to look up to, then, Andrew Tate. Because I agree that they're probably looking up to him for that male.
I do want to tie this into the larger point. However, I do want to tie this into the larger conversation on boundaries, right? Do we think that one of the reasons that this is a problem is Andrew Tate sucks with boundaries? He's not teaching boundaries correctly. Does anyone disagree with that statement?
Oh, yeah, I'd go further.
Yes, I disagree. No, I disagree. I disagree. No, 100% I disagree. Because I've heard the man talk about this. I've heard the man talk about this. The man said if the woman is not feeling you, you just dip. That man has said it immediately. He's never said we push you.
That's a business strategy.
You think the women are
That's a business strategy.
Hold on.
So now we're changing the definition.
Hold on. I've been interrupted. Hold on. I know everyone wants to get giddy.
Okay.
Hold on.
Pixie,
Andrew Tate does not.
Okay.
Oh, God damn it. Okay,
Listen.
I'll mute you. Pixie, go ahead.
Okay, so every fucking red pillar, if not the vast majority of red pillar, are constantly talking about how to basically trample over women's boundaries. And sometimes they say something like that superficially, like, oh yeah, if she's not feeling it, let her go. But literally their entire ideology and rhetoric.
The Tate Riz advice is actually pretty good and fairly respectful, because they'll have you not wasting time on women that you shouldn't be.
And they don't really know.
100% correct, by the way. That's not
Why
wrong.
are you yelling?
I'm not yelling. I'm talking.
He's being very masculine, is all.
But I'm just wondering, could you be less masculine so the feminine energy of Pixie could finish her thought? Because masculine protects, right? You got to protect Pixie's space, Karantos.
He's not being.
I don't protect strangers. Lord have mercy. That's not happening.
No, you got to protect feminine energy.
Boy amongst men.
Pixie's just being nice. She's just being nice.
Pixie, finish your thought. Pixie,
so
finish your thought.
basically, this entire red pill, manosphere, all of them constantly talk about how women don't really know what they want. What they really want is assholes, and that's why you have to do these lists of abusive strategies to get them. That they're kind of emotionally dumb children, and logically too. They don't know the shit that they want. So you can say oh, the woman, if they're saying they're feeling it, don't do anything. You see Andrew Tate is talking about boundaries, but that I really don't think that counts for shit. If 99% of your content is a woman, they're kind of stupid. They're kind of dumb. They're kind of superficial. They see money, they're gonna go for you. So there seems to be a huge contradiction for me there when it comes to red pill ideology.
So let me respond to some of the points you made. First of all, Andrew Tate states on numerous occasions that a goofball with money is just a rich goofball. That's the first point. So just because you have money doesn't necessarily mean that you're appealing or attractive. That's first of all. Second of all, when he says that women are stupid, or women are childlike in their mentality, he's talking about leadership. He's talking about taking the leadership position in your relationship. He's talking about women that you're already with, not women that you're trying to get. So he's not saying
he talks about women have to submit, how women are your property. This kind of leads back to the whole rape earlier discussion about how more likely it is to happen to somebody that you're in a relationship with already, right? If he's talking about how you have to take the leadership in this position, you have to assert yourself and be dominant, and she's supposed to submit, that's going to make you a lot more likely to cross her boundaries when she says that she's not comfortable with this. Because in Andrew Tate's world, you're the dominant, you have to keep pushing because you're the alpha leader.
Dominance does not require you to abuse boundaries or to cross them. That's not. You're trying to apply that onto him. You're trying to make him look like something he isn't.
Well, okay, but here's
you're not being good faith interpretation of what Andrew Tate was saying.
Absolutely.
Okay. If you listen to his speak on that Just Pearly interview where he was on that panel, he was, yes, you can assert, you say your boundaries, and if she's not willing to adhere to those boundaries, you cut her off. That's what he was saying. So this is what I was trying to say. Andrew Tate is very successful at his boundaries. It's just that his boundaries is not the optimal boundaries for most individuals.
Is he successful in prison, asserting his boundaries right now?
I was gonna say, are we talking about a guy?
He's not a man of integrity. He's not a man.
I want to give Irrelevant a chance.
He's not a man of integrity.
That's the head job right there, by the way. Free Andrew Tate, free the man.
I couldn't tell if we were being serious talking about a guy respecting women's boundaries who's literally like in jail for not respecting women's boundaries, but
innocent until proven guilty, by the way.
Innocent until proven guilty, of course. But
but not innocent.
Right. It's not. But
you don't need to defend his innocence.
I wanted to. I don't know how much we wanted to do this specific part, but I wanted to talk about like part of the reason why I think victim blaming is so prevalent is because I think there's a lot of people who grew up, I think quite similar to me, who whenever something happened to you that you could have avoided, it was actually your fault. I'll give you an example. If I left my wallet inside of a place where it was likely to be stolen, that was my fault. The person who stole it, like,
absolutely,
whatever, that's on me. That's my fault. And that's the way that I was kind of raised. If I left my doors unlocked and it got broke, that's on me. I don't know if I'm the only person.
There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. So that's correct.
Hold on. If I could tee in, it is so. There's a responsibility on you. It's unwise to leave your wallet in places that get stolen. It's also on the thief who stole it, though. The thief who stole it is also wrong. And I just want to make sure that Toronto.
By the way,
let's let Rilla finish.
So
60-40, by the way.
So what I'm talking about is how we, like, it seems like people like me were raised, I'm not sure how common this is or whatever, I just wanted to speak about it, was like that there was the idea that the person was bad, and I feel like there kind of even still is with when we talk about victim blame. Because whenever you ask, hey, what about the man that raped? It's always like, he's bad or whatever, but we can't control him. Let's talk about you. And that's the way that it usually goes. Just we like default to an actor that we consider to be like credible because we view every single person who is sexually assaulted or any kind of sexual misconduct as this malicious demon who cannot see reason. So there's no point in criticizing them. They're beyond repair. But you are worthy of criticism.
Let me ask you then, Irrelevant. Let me ask you then.
That's at least how I was raised.
Before you go, and Kelly, you can respond next, but I do want to ask him directly. So how would you go about changing the rapist or fixing the rapist or addressing the rapist in the room?
Well, it depends on how they did it. I mean, some sexual misconduct or rape has happened on the basis of like guys being pushy and actually not understanding, like they genuinely don't understand that what they're doing, the gravity of what they're doing. They just think, oh, she's playing hard to get, it's not whatever. And then there's obviously the like really malicious people who are like out there like, I don't really give a fuck. And, I guess it would depend on.
Okay, Kelly Jean, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So the problem is that we're comparing a very simple mistake, which is leaving your wallet somewhere unsafe, to the number of possibilities and probabilities and things that happen that led up to a woman getting raped. Now, occasionally, I guess sometimes those scenarios are simple, but often they're very complex. And there's a lot of different things along that timeline that is much easier to see in hindsight than it is to see when you're living that experience as knowing if the thing you're doing is wrong or not. Now, obviously, that's variable. But
I'm glad Kelly's avoiding the word nuance.
So just to be clear, I'm not trying to say that this is like the mentality that I have.
Yeah. So it comes from.
This is where victim blaming.
It comes from people having a really strong overestimation of how much they can control, and then other people thinking they can control nothing. And then the conflict comes from when you get these two groups of people being like, you can control all of your outcomes, and the other people saying, no, I couldn't do anything. And then, like, I get accused of promoting learned helplessness, which is definitely not the case. Like, I do think there are a lot of things that we can do to help women avoid these situations. But I don't overestimate how much control every woman has in every scenario, because there's a lot of times they just barely have any.
Yeah.
So what I think more specifically Irrelevant is getting at, and really, please tell me if I'm understanding what you're saying, really. It's like you grew up in a not great neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you grow up
Me
in
too,
the
guys.
hood, you start to realize really quick that nobody can afford shit, not even sympathy, right? And so that's kind of what happens. I think that's what Irrelevant's talking about. Is it's like if you live in a situation where shit's rough, like a lot of cruelty is born out of necessity, and a lot of the people that are like doing the victim blaming, the actual victim blaming, are conservative, blue collar, and low class people that like have been born out of this necessity. And so like what they see, to give them some empathy, what they see is like, okay, well, you know, you set yourself up for this, and I'm not agreeing with this, right? I think it's wrong, but it's born out of a living in an environment that's really harsh. A lot of
Why is it wrong? Why is it wrong?
Yeah, let me ask.
I think
What's wrong with it?
Here's why it's wrong. Because if it's not a necessity, then you're just being mean, right? You're just being unkind, right? Because like when some
you're being realistic and truthful.
Let me ask. Stop.
You need to be accountable.
Stop. I have a question for Nick. Nick on this. Is there a line where we should be like, ooh, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have done that, buddy, right? Like maybe that's kind of on you, and it's not cruel, and it's not unkind. It's simply reality. It's where.
Chrontos needs to mute his mic.
If they're your friend and you did something exceptionally stupid, I think that's valid to like talk to your friend and say, hey, that was fucking stupid.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's random.
Part of why you can do that is because you've already earned the empathy with them. They assume that you're coming from the best place possible, right? Like this is why, for example, like if Corantos came a random woman and she was sexually assaulted, if he just was like, that like stupid girl, you should have known better, right? I would imagine even Corantos would agree that's an incredibly insensitive, like inconsiderate thing to do. She doesn't know you, she's just random, and you have no like social like coinage with her. Whereas like if you have the capacity, if you're in a space where you don't have to necessarily be cruel and like harsh to people, you probably shouldn't be, right? It's not a badge of honor if you have the privilege and capacity to be kind to others and then you just choose not to be. You're just a fucking asshole.
Is there ever a point, maybe this will clarify my question better, is it ever a point where you have to be almost cruelly blunt with someone and say, hey, what you did was fucking dumb, and it is partially your fault.
Wait, honestly, I think. Wait. I just want to say.
I think that this is really inappropriate.
What the fuck? How does he even know I'm going?
I think if your friend is constantly getting raped, if you have a friend who is constantly and consistently been like, I don't know what's going on. I went home with another guy, and the same thing happened to me, and then you're like, okay, now it's time to really take a look at like what your behavior and actions are.
Your friend might be retarded at that point.
But I think it's completely inappropriate to do anything. I think it's completely inappropriate after your friend comes to you and tells you that she was raped for you to be like, how the fuck could you have avoided that? I think you maybe the most you can ask is like, how do you feel about this? Like, how are you feeling about this situation? 9 times out of 10, I bet the rape victim herself is gonna be like, fuck, I should have done this. I should have done this. I don't know what the utility is in hammering it in. And because of the way that people talk to and about victims and women when they come forward with any bit of information about a man, it's this feedback loop where now a woman is in any situation with a woman and not wanting to be the woman who comes forward. And they're trying to give the man benefit of doubt. They're trying to be like, well, I don't think that he would actually do this to me, or I don't know, maybe that's too on its face, maybe he's just complimenting me, and then it's this snowball effect into these things that like eventually you become raped. It's not this like easy as pie, like this guy, you know, is like, I'm gonna rape you, and then you have the opportunity to say yes or no, and then he can or can't. It is usually like a meander into this situation that is so hard to navigate. And I think part of why it's hard to navigate is because of people like Mindwaves who want to put so much accountability on the fucking women who then they come forward, then they are accountable, and the guy's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Look at this Amber Heard. And it's just like, how is a woman supposed to feel like she can even have boundaries without being feeling like she's going to like ruin someone's life over saying that something has happened to her?
I want to get before we all jump in, Mindwaves was dressed directly, so I'm going to give him right of first refusal, and if he doesn't want to talk about it, we can let other people.
I would also like to leave.
You gotta go? Yes. Irrelevant. Appreciate you. Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Check him out, gang. Twitch.tv/irrelevant. So, bye-bye.
Great mustache, by the way. Let me just say that.
Yeah, true, actually.
Great.
Fuck you, Azzy. Fucking mustache shaming ass bitch, bro.
I didn't say this mustache. I said it was a Steve Harvey mustache.
So you laid out a bunch, right? I think the part that I want to pick apart the most is this idea that anytime a woman ends up getting sexually assaulted, she was just sort of along this meandering path and wasn't really aware of her.
Time?
Well, that's the implications of what you said.
I will kill myself.
I don't think that that's what I implied.
Well, okay, in that, then where's the disagreement then, right? Because I don't understand exactly what you're coming at me for, because I never made my
because I've seen your tweet. And I know how you talk about it.
I think what she's saying, brass tacks, is like Lav is saying be kind to people, and I'm gonna be honest, Mindwaves, you're not the most careful with your rhetoric. I know that. I think that's the whole disagreement, right? Is you say some shit that's a little off color and it's gonna read real bad to a lot of people, right? And I think Lav's saying, maybe don't do that.
God forbid a victim actually sees that, who's already tearing herself up about how she could have avoided her rape, and just sees men like you saying it's all her fucking fault. I just don't understand how that's an environment that we want to harbor.
I don't know if
I've never said that women that get raped, it's all of their fault, right? The entire point that I've made.
But why even? I have never heard you even utter about how men can stop raping or add anything to the conversation add anything other than criticizing the victim.
That's because you're a dishonest bitch and you just want to ignore every single instance that I've ever said that ever, including on this panel, which goes to show that you just clearly don't care and don't listen, and you just want to spin this narrative because it's convenient for you, okay?
What even?
I think that was an inappropriate response.
Are you just doing this? Are you just doing this? No, I would fight, or did he say this before? Hold on.
I mean, if we're gonna judge by what people say on Twitter,
you're completely unaware.
I think. Okay, hold on. Okay, one at a time. Everyone, one at a time.
Hold on. I want to give.
Here's what I would say.
Miss Transphobe over here criticizing.
I asked the question.
As he did ask the question, I want to give her a chance to respond. As he asked the question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll ask the question.
Don't ask it again. We already heard it.
Did she? I didn't hear it. Ask it again.
I didn't hear it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, obviously I heard it, but no one else did.
But I'm not playing quick.
Quickly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So why in the world are you here to just cause drama, or are you here to have a part of?
I don't think anything of what I was saying was causing drama.
My question was. Did you hear Mindwave say this tonight or another night, or are you just here because you don't like the way he addresses these types of conversations?
I have repeatedly seen Mindwaves critique women coming forward.
Give me some examples, Lavin. Let's pick them apart.
Wait, I want to.
Are you just allergic to ever proving, you're substantiating anything?
Hey, stop! This is the behavior I'm talking about.
Please, time out.
This is literally the behavior I'm talking about.
Erudite, then Pixie wanted to chime in, and then Lav's got to have a chance to respond if you keep asking your question.
Yeah, everyone.
I don't know if you guys. I don't know. No. Please. Okay. Do you guys know Anastasia, the Ukrainian woman who's fighting in Ukraine right now? I think one of the best lessons we can learn from Anastasia is that sometimes minor differences don't matter in the scale of fighting a more important fight, right? In this conversation, I understand that Mindwaves is insensitive and he's super mean to you, Lav. You guys don't like each other. That's obvious.
No, hold on. You framing it is that it's a personal.
Don't take her narrative.
Please let me finish. The issue is the really big issue here is Karantos and the way that he talks about women. Mindwaves has some minor corrections to make. I agree with you on that. There is aesthetic things that could be improved. But when we're talking about reducing sexual assault, the only people actively resisting things that could be helpful at this point in time is Karantos. And it makes me sad to see people quibbling over the 5% difference when there's people like Karantos and Andrew Tate types that have more important battles.
I want to give Lav a chance to answer, then Pixie, and then Karantos. That's the order we're going.
My point will be irrelevant.
So I have personal beef with half of the people on this fucking
Name names.
And I'm not to assert that what I'm talking about with Mindwaves is out of some personal beef I have with him is ridiculous, and I think quite infantilizing of me, because I think that I came here and what I said was apt, and I think for you to say that it was personal is very strange, and I found it offensive.
I'm not
interested.
I'm not interested in any of this stuff with you, Lav. What I'm saying is, if you're hold on, if you're actually interested in talking about reducing sexual assault about women, who is a bigger individual to talk to, Mind Waves or Toronto's? The fact that you're picking Mind Waves makes me believe it's personal.
Yeah, but that's not her point.
Can we just talk?
Hold on, will everyone shut the fuck up?
Enough.
What is going on?
It's an open
I'm gonna go because I was told I was gonna go second. Now I want third. I'm not sure if this is gonna be the right panel to do it because things are already high tension and I can't tell who's like good faith or not here, like just in general because everything's been muddied. But I do think that there was something Mindwave said earlier that like did kind of rub me the wrong way, and it was some fault. And maybe but I think we already clarified that before. But I just want to repeat like why it might be like dangerous because it's like it's not her fault. Even if she could do preventative measures, at the end of the day, it's still the rapist's fault.
But no. So then you have to take accountability for the fact that you brought us in this direction.
Let me know when I can.
So Pixie, I tried to take us. Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on, because I keep getting interrupted, and I'm not getting no. Hey, let him finish. Pixie, you brought us here. I said, don't bring us here. Then Mindwaves says, hey, let's be critical about this and say, in these situations, yes, there are individuals who can have some fault, and you take issue with some fault. How,
because
that is, and take that as like some type of
we had this conversation like literally.
And I'm not even
right
being facetious, or like.
No, you are.
This is why we can't get anywhere.
Wait, we literally had
you bring us here, and we try to
let
be
me
critical
respond to you.
Yeah, let Pixie go. I only want to hear from Pixie right now. Go ahead.
Okay. Literally, what we were discussing before, and I think like it gets lost or we like lose this terminology once the conversation like gets more complicated and stuff. Is the idea that you can make preventative measures, and there are preventative measures women can take, but that doesn't mean that they're at fault for the rape. So when you say some fault,
So this is semantics, right? So when I say that there are, and this isn't applicable to all instances of sexual assault, of course, right? Because there's plenty of instances where the woman didn't have any sort of responsibility or agency in the matter, right? What I'm specifically talking about is when women do have agency, that they do have some sort of responsibility with the ability to, when it comes to the ability to recognize the situations that they're putting themselves in. And yeah, if you are putting yourself in risky situations, those situations are risky, well then yeah, you share some responsibility in that. I'm not saying it's your fault that person raped you, right? Obviously you didn't make that person rape you. That's their choice. They raped you. That's bad.
Do you think the first thing that happens after a woman is raped, she's not going, how could I have avoided that?
Lav, you can't, come on.
Okay, wait 1 second. So
every single person has interrupted every person.
It feels personal.
That doesn't make any fucking sense.
Stop.
Because I'm black.
It feels
I'm the only
personal.
black guy on this panel, by the way.
Stop. First of all, there's multiple black people. I'm married to one of them.
No, they aren't. Okay, they're not East African.
Stop.
Anybody who's not East.
Stop. I'll stop y'all. Okay. There's 1,000 people going at once, and this is inconducive to any, even chaos. It makes it hard.
It's a little disgusting for him to try to pull the race card when there's a proud brown-skinned Latina Lav on the panel.
We'll have a chance to answer the allegations, and I want Kratos a chance to answer the allegation that Erudite has levied at him, that he is helping rapists. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Let me just say this. I am suffering from PTSD right now because this is the second time I've had this demon come at me. Let me just say that real quick. So, you're that. What the fuck did I say? Let me ask you some questions. What the fuck did I say?
Then maybe this is personal.
Me all fucking victim blaming. Tell me, what is one thing that I said that you disagree with?
Oh,
that's a question to you. You could answer.
I don't know where to start. I, for example, think that Andrew Tate is a horrible example for men, and I don't care that he's Muslim. It doesn't make him a good person. I also think that he's a terrible example of a man respecting women or being a good leader or being a good role model. I think anyone who supports Andrew Tate at this point, based on his own self-incriminating statements, either thinks that he's a liar or he's actually just a guy willing to victimize women. And I think if you're a real man, that you would look at that and say, yeah, men willing to victimize women are bad men. And you don't.
Okay, so first of all, I don't ever recall ever saying that A, he was either a good leader, or B, he should be anybody's role model.
Okay.
I just said the reason why he's successful and the reason why he's where he's at is because there's a lot of men that don't have role models.
I'm just letting you know now. We're gonna end the Twitch stream. We're not ending the stream. I'll link the YouTube and chat for the Twitch people.
I guess.
But let me tell you, this is something that you'll disagree with. Every negative thing, or I'd say the vast majority of negative things that happen to us, even if we weren't completely at fault for them, we bear some accountability for them happening. If I were to fail a test,
no.
Right? Okay, thank you. So if I were to fail a test, right? I didn't fail the test because the world is cruel. I failed it because I didn't.
Ready for round 2, bro?
So when it comes to women, in certain circumstances, in not all of them, right?
How's your title video?
But guess what? I can't tell fucking rapists to stop raping. It's not gonna fucking happen. I'm not a magician, and it's not a utopia. I don't give a damn how inappropriate it is. And if you don't fucking feel like listening to it, get the fuck out. Anybody who's fucking being hurt, get out. Listen, let's go. Hold on, 1 second, man. I've never said that you should not be empathetic. I've never said go out of your way and make women feel bad for being fucking violated. I've never done that, and I would never do something like that. But let's just say you gotta keep it real.
The tension is super high right now. I just want to do one thing really quick. I want to take a performative cleansing breath and invite anyone else who would like to do it with me.
All right, can I take that? Because I've had my hand up for ages.
Okay.
I just want to talk to Mindwaves.
All right, go ahead.
I feel like, Mindwaves, you would agree with the way that we sort of tackle this, right? I don't think there was any real disagreement there. So I think the only thing that people are getting angry at you is just the tone. Your choice of words. Yeah. So like when we say things like responsibility and accountability, I think that gives people the wrong impression that means that it's your fault. Maybe there are better words we could use.
But no.
It's a connotation.
No, there's no connotation.
There's nothing to disagree with, right? There's absolutely nothing you disagree with. So how could I?
If we're going for conducive conversation, maybe there are better words.
Sure, but okay, we're talking about Twitter first of all. So I'm going to disregard this whole. Is it conducive to conversation? Well, yeah, it is because we're sitting here fucking talking about it even years after the fucking tweet was made. So yeah.
Let's just
beforehand. Yeah.
Let's just take a second.
Semantics. Bro, stop shouting.
Real problem.
You shut up as well.
The problem is that people come to that tweet and they're gonna read it and extract what they want to, right? So of course there are gonna be some people and see that, and to them they're always gonna extract like, oh well, this guy's just victim blaming. And then if you give it a more literal read, right, depending on how you're reading it, you could see that the substance of it, what it's actually saying, is correct. So
we weren't talking about the tweet though. We're just talking about using the words of like responsibility and accountability.
Those are the most positive words that they use in every circumstance.
I'm not saying I'm offended by it, but clearly other people were.
Just as a quick injection for this conversation, okay? When we talk about responsibility, there's two separate things going on here, and they get conflated all the time. You have a moral responsibility, and then you have like a general responsibility yourself. And the problem is when somebody says responsible, people immediately jump to that moral responsibility. If you go out into the forest and you get like mauled by a bear, you have like a responsibility to try to like keep yourself safe and act in a responsible manner. But that doesn't mean you have any moral responsibility for the bear attacking you. It's the same thing with like a sexual assault case, or somebody stealing something out of your car. You have like a responsibility to your person to keep yourself safe, but you don't have moral ownership of another agent choosing to do something bad to you. So when you guys are like you're saying responsibility, just make sure that you're clarifying there. I could be wrong, but I don't think anybody here thinks that there's like even like a shred. Like if you go out as a woman, you get as wasted you can, take drugs from a stranger, and roll around in a bar full and somebody rapes you. Even in that case, you have 0% moral responsibility for getting raped because the other person chose to rape you. There's an agent there that made that choice who has the moral responsibility 100%. Yes. But in terms of responsibility for safety of your person, you might have a higher or lower share of responsibility depending on what's happening. Just make sure to like
totally disagree.
And a lot of people take that as like a moral condemnation, and saying that isn't condemning you as a person. It's saying you're a bad person if you chose not to be responsible in a number of different ways or whatever.
Yeah. So I completely agree with all of that, but I think like jumping off of that as well, right? When we were talking about like kind of people in the hood, right, where you can't afford sympathy, yada yada, born out of necessity. That happens with the rape stuff too, right? The issue is that the tough love that you learn growing up in like a rough neighborhood or whatever is useful, right? It's like interact with the cops in a way that's safe. Don't go places that are dangerous. Don't leave your money lying around. All that sort of stuff. That works, right? It makes sense. It's useful. But if after a rape, if you tell her like, I mean, what the fuck are you wearing? It's like, that's not useful, right? It might be tough love. It could be tough love, but it's not useful in any way. So it's like, how does the toughness benefit anyone?
The
right?
problem is that like the way that it works is we tend to be reactive with our commentary.
Yeah.
So we play this same game every single time there's a mass shooting in the United States. Mass shooting happens and you get a bunch of liberals that say like, hey, we need to do something about guns. Then you get a bunch of conservatives saying, oh, don't politicize this issue. And it's like, well, we're probably not going to talk about guns when people aren't getting shot. But like after you've got like another Me Too story, another story comes out and it's like, woman went out, strange guy, first date, got drunk, got raped. And it's like, Jesus, like, are we doing this again? Like, I think it's heartless and it sounds bad to be like talking about it afterwards. But I mean, in terms of like chronologically, that's always how it's going to go, right? Nobody's going to be like seeing a woman on the internet. It's like, hey, what's up? I just saw you chatting. Just make sure that you don't take a drink from a stranger. Like nobody's ever going to say that unprompted. It's just because of the chronology of our events, it usually comes afterwards, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm completely agreeing with all of that, right? And we can't control that in wider society other than being like, come on, man, have a heart or whatever. But like on this panel or whatever, in these conversations, I think that's where it matters, right? That you're like as soft and as tender as you can, and you don't say things even that would allude rhetorically or whatever to having people feel like you're saying it's your fault, you shouldn't have been there, you dumb bitch, why'd you get raped, right?
Or I think
obviously no one's saying that, but people hear it.
No, I think on top of that, I just think the rhetoric that we're using isn't necessarily, I would say, I was going as far to say it's not necessarily effective because it can get so muddied. So I don't know if we should like think about like different terminology or different word we use.
There is no other word.
Responsibility. Yes, there is. We just have to be creative about it. And think about
okay,
I don't think it's the word.
Can you pause it like an alternative?
Neither do I.
Stop, please. Stop. Pixie, finish your point, but then we'll go one at a time. Are you done with your point, Pixie?
Well, it's like one more sentence. But basically, the reason why I'm saying this is because I think it would just be a lot more productive in terms of conversation if we did have separate terminology or separate words, so that this can stop getting muddied, and so we have to stop retreating over and over.
From those words, whatever words we adopt, from carrying the same stigma later. Right?
Yeah, they just.
That's a later problem to deal with.
No,
it
is. I'm going to tell you about stigmatizing language. It's completely useless. Changing language doesn't actually change the way people feel about them. We've done this in tons of stigma research. We've utilized stigma research for like over a decade.
Okay, wait, Aaron, I need you to send me what you're talking about, because as far as I know, like the invention of like new terminology and words has completely shaped like basically our legal system or justice system before. So like the idea of marital rape, I don't think that was a word until like the 70s. Like we had no way to conceptualize this wrong against women. Like it was very difficult.
We're not talking about legislation, right? We're not talking about.
You're conflating legalese.
It's super simple. I hear you. Wait, we all know what you're saying. We all know what you're saying. The point though is that
let her finish.
I think we all understand. It's pretty simple.
Let her finish. No, let her finish.
Shut the fuck up, dog. Not you, Pixie.
What I'm trying to say is that. The creation of like new terminology or new words can help us investigate concepts into a deeper.
Okay, sure. The issue is, the issue is the connotations that we all feel when we say responsibility. The fact that when I talk about, for example, equipping women with these things, and people immediately launch to calling me a pick-me, even if I swap to a different word, say I said autonomy, I don't know what word I said. What we see in stigma research is almost all stigma research is not effective. What we find is that if you make people say alcoholic and you force them to switch with person with substance abuse disorder, all that happens is all of the negative stigma attached to alcoholic now is just attached to person with substance use disorder.
Okay.
Language swapping isn't effective.
Okay, maybe the word necessarily, language swapping might not be necessarily what I'm trying to convey. I'm trying to convey terminology that actually reflects what we're trying to say better. Okay,
what's
terminology that is more rhetoric that is actually trying to go into line with what we're saying, right? Because when you say like responsibility, okay, it could be all of these things. Okay, well, let's choose a word that is like more specific to responsibility that you're talking about, because that is going to make for a more effective conversation. And like we see this in philosophy all the time, basically. Like we see it when people are like talking about like, let's say what a being is, a human being. Well, now you have like 20 million different conversations going around that. But then when we decide to make the terminology more specific, like let's say Dasein, whatever. Okay, now you could have a conversation specifically about that type of thing.
Sure. But could you give us an example?
For the sake of this conversation, maybe use the word like control. What is within your control? Is that an okay word?
Sure. I'm just like stating it out there that I think it would be beneficial, because we wouldn't be repeating the same round of like, oh, what do you mean by responsibility? Somebody says you mean something different.
I feel like the problem
here. There's a responsibility on interpreters though. Like if you read somebody's statement or you hear it, is there any onus on the hearer to try to hear it with some level of charitability or at least not bad faith?
I agree. However, I think because like this panel is having like more people coming in for the first time, et cetera, they don't necessarily know exactly what you're meaning, even if they're trying to read it in good faith. They might honestly like be lost, or even people who are just hearing this for the first time. So that's why I think like it's a little bit different.
I don't know if it's necessarily the word here, because it feels like there's a lot of conceptual baggage behind what's being said, where it's not just the word, like we need a new word to describe something. Because for instance, like I'll see people say something like, oh, the woman has no responsibility, and then they'll follow this up, and this is fairly common. I feel like in over 50%, people will follow up and say like, oftentimes there's no action the woman could have taken to avoid things. They'll say things like she was either date raped, it's a person that she thought she knew and she could trust, or it happened within a relationship, in which case there's nothing she can do. So if that's the case, I don't know if picking a new word would all of a sudden give somebody like a different conceptual framework, because it seems like regardless of the word itself, people are still loading things behind it. It seems like they have a deeper understanding that women are indeed helpless and totally incapable of avoiding most sexual assault.
And the reason why these words won't, the reason why the change of words wouldn't even matter is because the way the zeitgeist, the way people feel around these words is that it's a way of avoiding accountability because of trying to protect yourself. You don't want to deal with physical responsibility or moral responsibility because in that moment you have felt harmed. You're in the midst of trauma, and you don't even know how to deal with these words.
I mean, that's literal like political correctness, right? Like substituting a word for a different word because you're like wanting to placate somebody's feelings.
Okay, but that's not what I'm trying to do here. Do you understand that? Like I'm trying to say that we should try to use terminology that conceptualizes what we're actually referring to as specifically as we can. So there's like.
But the terminology all means the same thing.
No,
so
it doesn't mean the same thing. We literally just established. Oh, okay. There's a difference between self-responsibility and moral responsibility. So obviously these words mean the same thing. We have to make a distinction.
Okay, everybody here knows exactly what we're talking about, right? We're talking about rhetoric, okay? And rhetoric isn't just the words, it's not just the terminology. It's the words you say, how you say them, the tone with which you use them, the body language that you communicate it with, what you preface it with, and what you say after the fact, right? All of these things matter, right? And I'm gonna victim blame Mindwaves for a second here. It's like, this a whole thing fucking derailed because Mindwave said something in such a way that Lav really didn't appreciate, right? Didn't like the rhetoric, so she comes in, she starts fucking, I fucking hate you, man, whatever, and then it can't be like figured out because you guys have personal beef, right?
I don't think it was a good faith interpretation to begin with.
It definitely wasn't, right? But like, if someone's charged and you don't preface, they're gonna get fucked up over it, right? And I think those people are worth trying to worry about with your rhetoric, at least some of the time. You don't have to, but if you want the best outcome, you should, right? There's a few people that can never be won. They're just fucking deranged. They're insane, right? You can't catch them. You don't have to worry about everybody.
Okay.
Not you, Krantos. You're very reasonable.
So with the word responsibility, right, that means there has to have been something wrong that the person did, right? And
not morally wrong, just wrong in the sense that it's incorrect.
Wrong, right? Yeah, there's some kind of a wrong, and in some situations there are, but in other situations it's not quite so clear, right? And it's not. I'm not talking about the people who've done nothing obviously wrong. I'm saying, for example, if we're going to blame drink, for example, as a reason that has put you more at risk, how many drinks till we ascribe a blame? Because you wouldn't say one.
It's not about
right?
the amount of drinks, it's about the amount of drinks in a particular situation with a particular type of person and in a particular type of environment, right? It's not just about how much did this person drink.
All right, to propose new
example, right?
To propose new rhetoric.
You wouldn't always blame alcohol because it would be that's being had. The amount of people that would still blame someone for going out and having a couple drinks and then getting fucked is just,
Okay, hold on. What is the point of this interjection? Is there a single person in here that would blame somebody for getting raped if they had a couple drinks? Does anybody in here think that?
Yeah, but where is the line?
So why are we arguing it?
Well, Torontos, didn't you just say that like a while ago? Like, weren't you just saying like,
no,
this is what life is? Like, you know,
what I said is there will always be bad people out there. There will always be fucking rapists, and it's on you to fucking protect yourself and keep yourself safe to the best of your abilities. And I promise you, you are not protecting yourself if you're getting fucking drunk to the point where you can't fucking read right from wrong, left from right. You're fucking wobbling all over the place. You need somebody to go, like the fucking case where the case where the girl got fucking raped at the Kai party, for example.
Okay.
Apparently she got fucking so drunk that she just fucking passed out on a stranger's bed. Now, of course.
Okay, let's not go there.
No, it's not on her. Now, it's not on her. It's not on her that she got raped. Nobody's saying that it's 100% like on the fucking woman. But again, you need to be accountable. You need to be smart about the fucking shit that you do.
But the point
Wait, what's so insane about that?
Even a couple of drinks could change your decision making. So
then don't drink. How about that? Then don't fucking drink.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That I would consider that unreasonable.
I think blame is the
one not to drink at all.
Yeah, I think
drink
blame
at home.
Is the wrong
Drink where you're safe.
I think blame.
Boys, that's so unreasonable. That's so insane.
I want to hear from Stardust. Go ahead, Stardust.
Yeah, I think blame is the wrong word here, right? You're never going to know 100%, right? Hindsight is 20/20, but there are things that there are precautions you can take that will put you in a safer position in the future, right? So I think blame is the wrong word to be using here.
Bro, why the fuck are you niggas arguing words? Don't give a fuck. Fucking call it blame. Who gives a shit? All we're saying is, bro, all we're fucking saying is, it's not 100% on the fucking woman. Neither, guess what? Neither is it.
Why do you sound like Haas, dude?
Alright, so.
I don't give a fuck who the fuck I sound like. You guys are fucking being retarded. You're not arguing the fucking point.
You both.
Andrew Tate is really cool.
I'll stop you both.
Wait, so Pixie, now I understand why you have a problem.
I'll stop you too. Okay. So. Yelling and screaming is fine to a point. No one can understand you. Stop that shit. Okay, go ahead. Carry on.
Karantos, honestly, man, I'm gonna have to side with you a little bit here. I would love to get off the words too. But going back to the Kai Cenat situation, okay, right? Wouldn't it have been really great if there were a few like conscientious masculine individuals, kind of with their head on a swivel, right, paying attention to what's going on, that were like, okay, they see something untoward, something's a little off, something's a little strange, and they step up and take accountability. You know, wouldn't that be good too?
My black brother, you are now getting into the Islamic fucking zone. Beautiful. Women should only go out with a guardian. Women should only go out with a male guardian, 100%. You know how much the fucking rape cases would fucking diminish if women just went out with their husbands, with their fucking boyfriends, with men that would fucking protect them?
I mean,
just
we
think,
say that.
Of course, I'm not talking about fucking destiny here. You can't protect the fucking hero.
We say that.
Majority of rape happens from people that you know.
Oh yeah, because your husband is gonna fucking rape you while you're outside.
It's called marital rape.
I want to give space to Destiny. Go ahead.
I was gonna say real quick, we saw that with that Gillette commercial where it was like guys stopping other guys from being creepy, and I think the internet lost their fucking mind over that. If anybody remembers,
because that shit was the most pandering, pathetic, pussy ass shit ever.
Well, but that's what it was. How does it not sound pandering or pathetic when you say like, oh, don't drink?
Like, who the fuck are you selling the razors to? To fucking men. That shit was pathetic. Bro, focus on shaving the fucking stubble on your face. That's the only thing that Gillette should be focusing on. Not how to tell men what to do. But I don't want fucking Barney telling me how to be a good guy.
I think half the problem with the Gillette commercial, because I wasn't a big fan of it either, was the focus on words, right? Like half the commercial was 90,000 dads down the aisle on the grill going, boys will be boys, boys will be boys, boys will be boys. It's like, that fucking slogan that maybe even people say, like, that's not the problem, right?
Well,
the problem is that
is part of the problem.
I think that's part of the problem. I think it's part of the.
We can't get off the fucking words.
No,
we'll never, Nick.
Part of the problem is that we socialize men, or we basically don't hold young men accountable when they do actions, right? We literally talked about this earlier, that we're just like, oh yeah, like you have to be aggressive, or it's okay if they're like that because they're just men, instead of actually trying to fucking parent.
Yes, but the ideas behind the words are the issue. The issue is getting super pedantic about the words themselves, which is what tons of people do when they're trying to correct the problem. But this is the issue, is that's what's like driving a large portion of this conversation, is like just the words that people are using rather than the ideas that they're trying to convey and like the socialization behind these words that actually matter.
And even beyond that, with the slogan boys will be boys too, right? Sure it gets used in a bad way. I've never actually personally seen it be used in a bad way, but there's an idea behind it that's positive as well, right? It's okay for young boys to behave in masculine ways, and society is trying to take that out of men in general, right? I think we can all agree that there's a crisis of masculinity.
I could be totally wrong, but I feel like boys will be boys is always used to excuse some bullshit behavior. I don't think I've ever heard that in like a positive sense, but
so have you when you were in school, right, elementary school, right, were you ever kind of like play fighting with your homies or whatever, and it gets broken up by a teacher? Nothing wrong was happening, like you're just hanging out?
It wasn't. My school was anal about that, but no, outside, yeah, of course, we'd beat each other with sticks and shit. Yeah.
Well, I'm not even talking. I'm not even saying necessarily the extreme stuff where you're beating each other half to death.
I mean, we're 8 years old, so we're not like doing major damage. But no, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, but even the play fighting where you literally don't make contact, you're just going, like whatever the fuck, right? I would have loved for a teacher to say, I mean, come on, boys will be boys, but that wasn't allowed. All the teachers in my school cracked the fuck down on it. They were super anal about it too. And so I wasn't able to express my masculinity. And like rough and tumble play is really important in boys, especially developing emotional regulation.
Yeah,
so it's like,
but there's a time and a place. Even in the boys will be boys. That's why they want men to come back into education, because they want men to be able to assert themselves to teach young boys that in certain situations you cannot be physical. It's called discipline.
okay. I mean, kind of a.
Okay, I gotta go. Gym time.
Reparino, cappuccino, cappuccino. See you guys later. Peace out.